Hey, greetings. Michael DDA here with We Are Israel. You know, we are Israel. I want to teach people how to become Israel. Too many believe that they can keep a couple things or believe a certain way, and that makes them Israel. But becoming Israel is far more complex and life-changing than most of us have ever imagined. Remember, it's about leaving the kingdom of your birth. You're going to leave those covenants that we've left behind, those things that bind us to other Elohim, because Yahovah is going to be our only Elohim. Once we do that, then at Passover, we can draw near and come into covenant with Yahovah. I'm talking to men. Ladies, follow your man. That's your safety. That is what I like to call it, the created purpose for a woman. The created purpose for a man is to follow Yahovah, or his appointed man. In the case of Moses, Israel was following Moses. In the last days, I think Yahovah is going to raise up servants. And most people will be following those servants as those servants follow Yahovah. That's why he's the servant of Yahovah. And we're going to see probably the Shalach of Yahovah too. He's going to speak for Yahovah just as Moses spoke for Yahovah. Oh, we have fun things to look forward to in the last days. Come, Yahovah, come. Deliver your people a second time. Well, last week we left off here, 22:6. This is this chapter, the next chapter, and the next chapter are very eclectic chapters. An eclectic collection of statutes, some judgments, primarily statutes, that are all seemingly put together. Here's a bunch of them that we covered last week. We talked about the bird's nest. If a bird's nest happens to be before thee along the way, remember these are almost all these. But I think we're talking more about Israel's seed, the male child. It's a bit unusual. We don't see that in the rest of Torah, but we see it a lot here in Deuteronomy. It's telling us that we can take the eggs that the mother's sitting on, but we can't take the mother. I think that is more likely to be a situation where we can take advantage of it when we're raising chickens, when we're raising ducks, or other birds that have edible eggs. We don't usually find a lot of birds out in the wild, though we do now and then. I have a couple ducks that every now and then will leave me a couple birds in the morning, or a couple eggs in the morning. I love it. I'll gladly snatch them up, but they're not sitting on those eggs. But if they were, you could take the eggs, leave the mother. The next thing we talked about was building a parapet on your house. Remember, it's about all the blood. We don't want to have the blood on us. It brings the curse on us, and we want to be delivered from the blood. So the best way to be delivered from the blood is to put a parapet on our house, on our roof. But you know what? A parapet is just one thing. How about a fence in your yard to keep your dog, who's fairly aggressive, from hurting others? It all goes, there's other applications for these. He says, you shall not sow your vineyard. All right, well, how about your field? How about anything with different kinds of seeds? So we don't want to mix our grape seeds. We don't want to mix our corn seeds. We don't want to, I don't think we're talking about a garden here. We're talking about a large field. How about soybean seeds with GMO seeds? You know, that's a huge problem in this day and age, isn't it? How farmers are losing their fields because their field, who's next to a field, is getting sown with GMO seed, and the bees are pollinating both. Oh, it's terrible. Talking about an ox and a donkey. Don't put them on a plow together. They're unequally yoked. Garments of wool and linen. It seems like animal products and plant products mixed together. We don't want to do that. Are these all concepts that we can use today? I think they are. He tells us to put tassels on the corners of our garments. Okay, who's he talking to? Again, it's the thee. Second person, singular, masculine. He's talking to Israel's seed as a whole. And in a sense, each man individually. Remember, the commandments were given to the same thee. Tassels. Israel's seed. The Ezra men wear tassels. If any man takes a wife. Remember this, we were talking about this last week. He took a woman. She wasn't a virgin. He detested her. I thought you gave me a virgin. Well, so now we've got a controversy. Yehovah is going to tell us how to settle this controversy. If the father and the mother can go into the bed that the woman slept in that night and show her the covers that have the blood on them, that's the evidence that she was a virgin. And he's going to end up having to pay her, what is it, actually pay the father, 100 shekels of silver. Because he brought a bad name on a virgin of Israel, who happens to be the virgin of the daughter of a man of Israel. Brought a bad name on him as well, didn't he? And it says, and he shall not be able to divorce his woman all his days. Now it goes the other way. But if the thing is true and the evidence of the virginity was not found, she played the harlot in her father's house. Sheesh, you know what? Like that's a big deal in this day and age. We're almost encouraging our daughters to be intimate with others. We don't want that. That's not a good thing. Family Channel. So many of the programs that we see encourages this kind of behavior. Well, this woman gets stoned for playing the harlot in her father's house. Next, we talked about a man who is found lying with a woman who is bound to a master, who is mastered by a master. Here, let's see what it said. Mastered by a master, Baal. They use it as a verb and then they use it as a noun. Mastered by a master. It says, then both of them shall die. You know, this is adultery. This is adultery. This is a woman who has a husband, has a man, has a master, and she's being taken by another man. This is adultery. We confuse so much of the other stuff with adultery. A man taking another woman who's not married to not mastered by a master, a single woman, is not adultery. It's a second woman. We'll talk about some of that today in length. 23 says, if a young woman who is a virgin betrothed to a man. Betrothed to a man. You know, being betrothed to a man is pretty much the same as being married to the man. He finds her in the city and lies with her. Then you shall bring them both out of the gate of the city. You shall stone them to death with stones. The woman because she did not cry out in the city, and the man because he humbled his neighbor's woman. So you shall put away the evil from Israel, from thee. But if a man finds a betrothed young woman in the countryside, and the man forces her and lies with her, then only the man who lay with her shall die. She cried out, but nobody was there to hear her. Finally, it talked about the woman who is For he found, no, that's not it. Here it is. If a man, finally talked about a man who finds a young woman who is a virgin but is not betrothed. Here's a young man. This is what's going on today in our schools, high schools, grade schools, middle schools. Man finds a young woman, seizes her, lies with her, and they are found out. This is consensual, it sounds like. Then the man who lay with her shall give the young woman's father, here, 50 shekels, not 100 shekels, 50 shekels. And she shall be his woman because he has humbled her. How come she didn't get stoned for playing the harlot in her father's house? What's the difference between the one and the other? Inquiring minds want to know. The last one was, a man shall not take his father's woman, nor uncover his father's bed. Remember, father's woman, this is probably a woman who's not your mother. If you're uncovering your father's bed, we're talking about someone who is related to you, a sister, your mother, a granddaughter. You don't take, that's what do we talk about? Father's bed was uncovering his nakedness. Remember we talked about the nakedness of your father's woman. You shall not uncover it as your father's nakedness. Yeah, interesting stuff. We finished chapter 23 also. Again, just a hodgepodge of different things. And some of them, I got to tell you, I have some challenges with because I don't understand what's going on here. The first one, right here, he who is emasculated by crushing or mutilation. More correct translation might be no one whose testicles are crushed and or whose male organ is cut off shall enter the assembly of Yahovah. All right. But how does that fit into the eunuch? Here, this is Isaiah 56. For thus says Yahovah to the eunuchs. Isn't this exactly what's happening with the eunuchs? Testicles are crushed or whose male organs are cut off. I think their testicles are being cut off if they're eunuchs. But yet look what Yahovah says. For thus says Yahovah to the eunuch who keeps my Sabbaths and who chooses what pleases me and holds fast to my covenant. This is a man who is drawing near to Yahovah. He's leaving the kingdom of his birth. He's drawing near to Yahovah and keeping his covenant. Sounds like he's going to take part in Passover as well. Certainly going to keep his commandments. Even to them I will give in my house and within my walls. They're there. They're in the assembly. A place and a name better than that of sons and daughters. And I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. Then it talks about the sons of the foreigner, the sons of the Ben-Nakar. Also the Ben-Nakar. Again, still talking about men, aren't we? He talks about one of illegitimate birth, a bastard, shall not enter the assembly of Yahovah even to the 10th generation. Oh my. Does that mean that a man today, if within 10 generations, had a father that was a bastard, that's going to make it so we cannot enter the assembly of Yahovah? I don't know. Here we're talking about, in the next verse, the Ammonite and the Moabite, which I think doesn't make sense to include them together, because think about this for a second. It's talking about an Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter the assembly of Yahovah, even to the 10th generation. But then he goes on. None of his descendants, none of his, probably they're inferring seed, shall enter the assembly of Yahovah. But now it says forever. So at 10 generations, is that forever? Which is it? But listen to what it says. Remember, it's the Ammonites and the Moabites. These are both sons of Lot, Ammon and Moab. Because they did not meet you with bread and water on the road when you came out of Egypt, and because they hired Balaam against you. Okay, the Moabites did that, but the Ammonites didn't do that. We didn't pass through the Ammonites' land. I think they're getting a bum deal here. It makes me wonder, why is this in here? Because they hired Balaam, the son of Beor, from Pethor of Mesopotamia to curse you. Nonetheless, Yehovah, thy Elohim, would not listen to Balaam. Okay, well, we saw that. Then it talked about the Edomites. Remember, the Edomites were constantly fighting directly against Israel. Oh man, we saw it constantly. We have an inkling of it in Torah, but it's there. We just don't see it. But when we look at Yasher, oh my goodness, we see the animosity that is between Jacob and Esau. Remember, the Edomites are Esau. Israel is Jacob. Animosity between those two brothers. It was the Amalekites. Esau's son, who was that? Esau was Amalek's grandfather. I forget who his father was right offhand, but they were the ones who attacked Israel in the rear. When we were leaving Egypt, he attacked us in our most vulnerable spots. When we asked to cut through their land, they wouldn't give us a moment of passing through their lands. Talk about not bringing us our bread and water. No, they came out armed against us to prevent us from coming into their land. Yet, Yehovah seems to be saying here, you shall not abhor the Edomite, for he is your brother. You shall not abhor the Egyptian because you were alien in his land. I understand the second, but Edom? He says the sons, it doesn't even say the sons, it just says sons of the third generation born to them may enter into the assembly of Yehovah. Okay, well, we need more light, I guess. Maybe I need more light. We talked about an army going to war against thy enemies, keeping thyself from every wicked thing. We want to keep ourselves clean. If there's a man among you who becomes unclean by some occurrence in the night, sounds like a wet dream, he's got to leave the camp. Why does he have to leave the camp? Here's the reason. For Yehovah thy Elohim walks in the midst of thy camp to deliver thee and to give thine enemies over to thee. Therefore thy camp shall be holy, that he may see no unclean, that Yehovah may see no unclean thing among thee and turn away from thee. Okay, this is evidence that there are no women going to war with Israel's seed. They may have servants with them, they may have gear with them, but they do not have ladies with them. It's not going to happen. A woman in her menses is going to contaminate all the camp. A man with an unclean emission, no, even a man who's unclean because of an emission, it's not even an unclean emission, it's just he's unclean because of an emission in the night, has to leave the camp. So he doesn't dirty the camp, tameh the camp. But a woman in the camp is going to get everybody unclean. Everything that she sits on is going to become unclean. We've got to understand these kinds of things. Talked about no ritual, no harlots. They say ritual, it's a made-up word. There's no harlots among Israel's daughters, and no perverted ones among Israel's seed. No, they can't stay. He says, you shall not bring the wages of a harlot or the price of a dog. Again, the wickedness that's going on with homosexuality. To the house of Yehovah thy Elohim for any vow. For both of these are an abomination to Yehovah thy Elohim. You know, it's strange to me that it would say for any vow. For any vow. Nadar is the word that they're using there. Vow. They have offering added for a vow. But does that infer that it's okay to bring the wages of a harlot and the price of a dog for something else into the house of Yehovah? I don't know about that, but that's what it says, for any vow. You shall not charge interest to thy brother. Brothers seem to be the ones who are borrowing the money from their brothers. Doesn't say from thy sister, does it? Then he talks about to a foreigner you may charge interest. But to your brother you shall not charge interest, that Yehovah thy Elohim may bless thee in all which thou setst thy hand in the land which thou art entering to possess. Then he talks about vows. If you make a vow, fulfill your vow. But if you don't make a vow, it's not a sin to you. But then he goes on and he says, whatever comes from your mouth, that which has gone from your lips, you shall keep and perform, for you voluntarily vowed to Yehovah thy Elohim. Do we have to say, I vow in the name of Yehovah thy Elohim? Or is it just the fact that it's coming from our lips? Remember, we're in the image of Yehovah. What Yehovah says, he does. Many times he says, I vow in my own name. But you know what? Most of the time it just says Yehovah says. But he's going to do it, isn't he? We do what we say we're going to do. Or don't say it at all. When you come into your neighbor's vineyard, they said we can eat grapes at our pleasure, but we're not going to put them into a container. Same thing when we come into our neighbor's standing grain. We can glean the grain, but we cannot use a scythe on it. What do they say? A sickle on it. You're saying it's for your neighbor's standing grain. We can eat what we can eat. Okay, well that's where we left off last week. We're going to start here this week. Talking about divorce. This is a pretty interesting subject. When a man, you know what? Vocabulary. When you're reading the scriptures and you see words like wife and marries, husband, look it up. It's going to be eye-opening to you to find out what the word is that they're actually using. And it's going to develop deeper understandings in your life. It's going to give you better knowledge and deeper understandings. You know, and with that, we can now act in wisdom. But we've got to get the knowledge and the understandings. And if we're going to stick with wife and marries, it's going to stunt our spiritual understandings. Let's take a look at what it actually says in these verses. I think this is actually 1 through 4. I've got a couple notes that I want to talk about, but let's just take a look at this. When a man takes, here's lakak, takes a woman. Doesn't say a wife, it says takes a woman and masters her, marries her. Is the woman, do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? This is what we do. We pervert it, don't we? Does a woman take a man? Or does a man take a woman? Bone of his bone, flesh of his flesh. Here's a woman, apparently, who is not pleasing to the man. He took a woman. He mastered her. And it happens that he finds no favor, that she finds no favor in his eyes, because he has found in her uncleanliness. It says, in her tameh. Is that tameh? No, arva. Nudity, disgrace, blemish. We're supposed to teach our women, it talks about in the New Testament, to be without blemish. That's our job. But sometimes we have a woman who doesn't want to learn to live without a blemish. She wants to continue to do her own thing. And when they do, the sin is not on them. It's on us, the men. Oh, I know. This is such unheard of things. But we're going to talk about more today. We've got to see that the sin is on the men, not the ladies. Ladies have their relationship with Yahovah through their man. They must learn to their created purpose. What's the woman's created purpose? Thy desire shall be for thy man, and he shall rule over thee. Follow your man. Follow your man. Learn to follow your man. Not about you keeping the commandments of Elohim. That's his job. He's going to teach you to do that. Or not. Maybe he's a wicked master. Does a woman who has a wicked master have no relationship with Yahovah? You know what? I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case. Does she learn to follow her man? But then how do you work it with the Canaanites? We came into that country and we killed every man and every woman, every child, for the places where the land where we were taking. How is the woman preserved? Talking about Abigail and Nabal. They called Nabal a son of Belial. He was in Israel. Was one of the Israelites. Yet they called him a son of Belial. Son of wickedness. Foolish. But we saw that Abigail was willing to die for her man. Well, I guess I'm getting sidetracked a little bit. We're talking today about a woman who is found, he's found uncleanliness in her. He writes her a bill of divorce and he sends her away. Here's what it says. And he writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her out. This is shalak. Shalak. Sends her out and sends her out. It's literally what it says. Of his house. When she has departed from his house and goes and becomes another man's, if the ish detests her and writes her a certificate of divorce, puts it into her hand and sends her out of his house, or if the man dies who took her as his woman, then her master, her Baal, it would say her former husband is what they want to say, but it says her Baal, the first, who sent her away, must not take her back to be a woman doesn't even say his woman, to be a woman, after the defilement, uncleanliness of her tameh. This is the tameh. Of her tameh, for that is an abomination before Yahovah. So once your woman goes to another man, leaves and goes to another man, she can never come back to you. For it is an abomination before Yahovah, and really it's probably thou, and thou shalt not bring sin on the land which Yahovah thy Elohim is giving thee as an inheritance. Here we had, this was the man. if the latter man detests her and writes her a certificate, or if the man dies. Oh, the man, the last. This is the second one, the one that took her now. He finds uncleanliness in her. Yeah, then the former man, the first, cannot take her back. All right. This begs us to develop understandings here. And I wanted to remind us, what is it that Yahovah hates? I thought for the longest time that Yahovah hated divorce. Does he hate divorce? I would say no. He doesn't like it. But does he hate divorce? He provided for it right here. Bill of divorcement. What is it that Yahovah hates? Remember, he divorced Israel. He put us out of his house, cast us among the nations. Does he hate divorce? Remember, as a young man takes a woman, Betula, a virgin, so Yahovah Baal's his sons. We were his spouse, if you will. But he cast us out because we would not obey him and follow only him. We committed harlotry with Assyria, with Babylon, with Egypt. What does he say? And still we were not satisfied. What is it that he hates? I think it's the sending away without a bill of divorcement. Let's take a look at Malachi. This is where we find this particular verse. It says this, "Yet you say, for what reason? Because Jehovah has been witness between you and the woman of thy youth, with whom thou have dealt treacherously. Yet she is thy companion, and the woman by covenant, and thy woman by covenant. But did he not make them one, having a remnant of the Spirit? And why one? He seeks godly seed." This is why the man takes on his woman, because he seeks godly seed. "Therefore take heed to thy spirit, and let none deal treacherously with the woman of his youth. For Yahovah, Israel's Elohim, says that he hates," there it is, "he hates the sending away. For it covers one's garment with violence, says Yahovah of hosts." He hates the sending away. You know what? A man who has to send his woman away hates that. He doesn't like that. I had to do that with my first woman. But I tried for years to get her back. But you know what? You can't have somebody in your life that won't follow you. It's going to bring sin on your life. And this is why Yahovah has given us these instructions on putting away a woman, giving her a bill of divorcement. But now look at verse 5. When a man has taken a new woman, he shall not go out to war. Now, I thought this was really interesting. Here's how some of the translators of other versions translate this. Here's the Contemporary Jewish Bible, Complete Jewish Bible, one of the two, I forget what it is. If a man has recently married his wife, is that what it says? Takes a new woman. It's a new woman. When a man shall take a woman new. Takes a woman new. Takes a woman new. This is what we're talking about. Takes a woman new. They make the new part recently. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the woman who's new. he is not to be subject to military service. Here's another one. When a man has newly taken a woman, newly taken a wife. No, we're talking about taking a new wife, not newly taking a wife. You see how they trip it up? When a man shall take a woman new, he shall not go to war. Take a woman new. What if he's already got a woman? What if he's got 2 women? What if he's got 3 women already and he takes a new woman new? See, this is a new woman. He shall not go to war or be charged with any business. He shall be free at home for 1 year to bring happiness to his woman whom he has taken. Happiness. Bring happiness to the woman who he has taken here. He shall be free at home for 1 year and brighten, cheer up, gleesome, blithe. I don't know what blithe means. And brighten his woman which he has taken. I thought, wow, that's a honeymoon, isn't it? Remember, this is kind of goes along with the man who has betrothed a woman. We saw this in verse 20. And who is the man who is betrothed to a woman and has not taken her? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in battle and another man take her. Here's a man who has taken a woman, and he's still not to go to war. A little deeper understanding there, I think. Here's another new thought. These are lots of new thoughts. No man shall take a lower or an upper millstone in a pledge, for he takes one's living in a pledge. So now, is it about millstones? Or is there a larger understanding, a deeper understanding here? I think this is a general principle. If a man makes his living mowing lawns, you can't take his lawnmower or perhaps even his vehicle to the thing that he uses to get to his jobs in a pledge. We don't take the thing that he uses to uses in order to make a living. If a man is found kidnapped, isn't this interesting? It says a man. If an ish. If a man is found kidnapped by any of his brethren, Aki, of Israel's seed, and mistreats him or sells him, then the kidnapper shall die. And thou shalt put away the evil from among you all. Thou shalt put away the evil from among y'all. One second person singular, one second person plural. If a man is found kidnapping any of his brethren, let me find out what that says about man. Does it say man? Yeah, man. Stealing anyway. Yeah, it's a man. An ish. I always want to know more. What are we doing? I said, what about a woman or a servant? How about a child? Any of his brethren among Israel's seed, and mistreats him or sells him. It's okay to do it for the others? I don't think so. Take heed in an outbreak of leprosy, that thou carefully observe and do according to all that the priests, the Levites, shall teach thee, shall teach you. Just as Jehovah commanded them, so you shall be careful to do. Well, we saw this in, Leviticus 13 and 14. 13 talked about the scabs that we have on our arms or legs or head or beard, our bodies. And when they turn leprous, we have to be escorted out of the city because we can't remain in the city. The next chapter we talked about the remedies for when a man is cleaned from that leprosy. And how she is able to come back into the house. And we also talked about a leper's house or clothing that has a leprous patch in it and the things that we're supposed to do with that. The priests have the final authority. We are to listen to the priests. They have the priests, the Levites. They've done that before, the priests, the Levites. But we're talking about the priests. The priests are the ones who have the say in this matter. Not so much the Levites. The priests are Levites. We're talking about the priests. Do all that the priests, the Levites, shall teach you, just as I commanded them, so you shall be careful to do. Remember, we had, here, we'll talk about it here. Remember what Yahovah, thy Elohim, did to Miriam on the way when thou came out of Egypt. Remember what he did? Here. She was put out of the camp. Command Israel's seed that they put out of the camp every leper, everyone who has a zav zuv, an unclean discharge, and whoever becomes defiled by a corpse, has touched the dead. Takes time, and there's a rite that has to be taken care of to make you clean from the dead. You shall put out both male and female. You shall put them outside the camp, and that they may not defile their camps in the midst which I dwell. Again, same principle, Yahovah dwelling in our midst. You know what? There's a higher standard when we go to war, apparently. The ladies aren't going with us. But a woman in her menses gets to stay in the camp. There's other ways of dealing with that. Here is Numbers 12. This is talking about Miriam when she was... and when the cloud departed from above the tabernacle, suddenly Miriam became leprous, as white as snow. And Aaron turned towards Miriam. There she was, a leper. So Aaron said to Moses, "Oh, Adonai!" Aaron calls Moses Adonai. "Please do not lay this sin on us, in which we have done foolishly, in which we have sinned." Remember, they were both questioning their Adon, their master. They're the older brother and sister. But Yahovah made him the head over them. "Please do not lay this sin on us, in which we have done foolishly, in which we have sinned. Please do not let her be as one dead, whose flesh is half consumed when she comes out of her mother's womb." So Moses cried to Yahovah, saying, "Please heal her, O Elohim, I pray." Then Yahovah said to Moses, "If her father had spit in her face." You know, this is graphic. Here is Aaron and Miriam confronting Moses about the Cushite woman. Call her an Ethiopian woman. She's a Cushite woman. Yet, it's Miriam who is going to get the leprosy, not Aaron. Did Aaron not get the leprosy because he was needed as the high priest? Or was the sin greater for the woman to question her Adon than for a man to question his Adon? Which is it? I think it's the latter. So Moses cried out, "Please heal her." Then Yahovah said to Moses, "If her father had spit in her face, would she not be shamed 7 days? Let her be shut out of the camp 7 days, and afterwards she may be received again." That's how long the leper has to stay out and be clean. She's had leprosy. She's clean of leprosy right now, but she's still got to leave the camp for 7 days for the purification process. So Miriam was shut out of the camp 7 days, and all the people did not journey till Miriam was brought in again. Ooh, so interesting. That was a graphic example to all the ladies in the camp, I think. Well, let's continue. Focus around 10. when you lend to your brother anything, thou shalt not go into his house to get his pledge. We don't take what we want for a pledge. Thou shalt stand outside, and the man to whom thou lends shall bring the pledge out to thee. And if the man is poor, thou shalt not keep his pledge overnight. We're talking about lending your brother anything. This is the pledge. What is he going to give us in the pledge that we're going to get it back? Thou shalt in any case return the pledge to him again when the sun goes down, if it's his clothes, that he may sleep in his own garments and bless thee. Remember, this is a poor man. And it shall be righteousness to thee before Yahovah thy Elohim. We're lending this poor man something, and in a sense, he's bringing out a pledge, but we're giving the pledge right back. So we don't have collateral for what we're giving to our brother. But it shall be righteousness to thee before Yahovah thy Elohim. Be generous with thy brother, especially thy poor brothers who we're talking about. It says, thou shalt not oppress a hired servant who is poor and needy. Here's a hired servant. We're just talking about our brother. Now we're talking about a hired servant. Who is the hired servant? Who is poor and needy? Whether one, no, it doesn't, of your brethren or of the ger. It says alien. There's another word you always have to look up. What is the word that they're using here? Thou shalt not oppress the hired servant. This is the sakir. This is a man hired for wages by day or year, who is poor or in need from among thy brethren. So here's a man, it could be from thy brethren, who is a sakir, a hired servant, or from any ger, from any of thy ger who is in thy land, in thy gates. So we're talking about a brethren. The hired servant is one of a brethren or one of the ger who's within thy gates. Each day thou shalt give him wages, and not let the sun go down on it, for he is poor, and he has set his heart on it. Raya, or Carissa, and I were watching a movie last night, Newsies. Thank you, honey. Watching the Newsies last night. The owner of the paper raised the price of the papers for these boys that are out delivering the papers, selling the papers to the cities. He just took it on himself to raise the wages. Take the money right out of their mouths, if you will. This is kind of the things we're talking about. Here's somebody that's poor. We're taking the wages. Each day you shall give him his wages, and not let the sun go down on it, for he is poor and has set his heart on it, lest he cry out against Yahovah, against thee, to Yahovah. Let's make sure we got this right. And it be sin to thee. You know, the other place where we see the hired servant is the instructions for Passover. It says, the toshav and the hired servant shall not eat it. The toshav and the hired servant. Who's the hired servant? Is that the brethren? The ger who dwells with us, he gets to eat it. Maybe it's the hired servant who's not going to eat ours. He's got to do his own. That could be what's going on. Okay. Each day you shall give him his wages. We read that. Oh, here's an amazing scripture. Fathers shall not be put to death for their sons. This says children. Oh, the perversions that we get in the scriptures because we will not translate these things correctly. Fathers. This is avot. Fathers shall not be put to death for sons. No doubt, this is not children, this is sons. Nor shall sons be put to death for fathers. A man shall be put to death for his own sin. You know, what it doesn't say is quite amazing. We're not talking about mothers being put to death for their daughters, or daughters being put to death for their mothers, are we? We're talking about a man dying for his own sin. This is an ish. This is not a person, this is an ish. They put person. Look at, a person shall be put to death for his own sin. No, this says a man shall be put to death for his own sin. Here's a man, probably the strongest bond a man can have or should have is between his father and himself and yourself and your son. The ones you love the most in the whole world. Yet the father can't die for the son, and the son can't die for the father. A man's got to die for his own sin. But now we have this perversion in Christianity that somehow a man died for all the sins of the world, men and women. Does anybody have a problem with that? A man shall die for his own sin. But a man cannot die for another man's sin. Every man dies for his own sin. See, we don't understand the vehicle by which sins are forgiven. Oh, we understand a few things about Israel when we have inadvertent sin. Maybe that's not the word that I want to say. Sin that they've done by accident, in ignorance. We can bring an offering for that. But what about the sin that we do on purpose? When is that sin forgiven? I think it's forgiven at Passover. Numbers 9 talks about the man who fails to bring the offering, Yahovah's offering, at the appointed time. It says, his sin shall remain upon him, and he shall be removed from the camp. What is it saying? Again, you got to look at what it doesn't say. That means the man who does bring the offering, Yahovah's offering, at the appointed time, that the sin will not remain on him, and he will stay in the camp. But is it talking about the lady, or is it talking about the man? It's the man who's going to bring these offerings. Well, look what it says here in Ezekiel. Son of man, when the land sins against me by persistent unfaithfulness, I will stretch out my hand against it. I will cut off its supply of bread, send famine on it, and cut off man and beast from it. Look what it says. Even if these three men, Noah, Daniel, Job, were in it. This is in it, the land that sins. They would deliver only themselves by their righteousness, says my master Yahovah. Now, your bone of your bone and your flesh of your flesh. Daniel's woman, Job's woman, Noah's woman obviously was saved, weren't they? But this is talking about a man is saved by their righteousness. This is following the commandments of Yahovah, and specifically keeping the Passover. Here, this is one more. Talks about men. Behold, this is Ezekiel 18. Behold, all souls are mine. The soul of the Father, as well as the soul of the Son. Okay, this is not the mother and the daughter. This is the Father and the Son. The Av and the Ben, the Son, is mine. The soul that sins shall die. But if a man is just and does what is lawful and right, if he's walked in my statutes, kept my judgments faithfully, he is just. He shall surely live, says my master Yahovah. It's about the men. A man cannot die for another man's sin. We've learned lies. We've accepted lies. We've accepted nice stories. Peace, peace. But there is no peace. We have women coming to Yahovah the same way a man comes to Yahovah. Is that what Yahovah says? You guys, we've got to read the scriptures. Find out. We got to get a better understanding. New knowledge. Deeper understandings. So that we get the wisdom and we can live with Yahovah forever. Having things like this in the scriptures, fathers shall not be put to death for their children, nor children put to death for their fathers. A person shall not be put to death. A person shall be put to death. No, it's perverted, you guys. We've got to get better understandings. This kind of stuff. You know, I had a guy the other day. But doesn't God allow this to be put in the scriptures in this language? What kind of reasoning is that? Go to what the Torah actually says and read it for yourself and learn it for yourself. Well, I don't know Hebrew. Well, learn it. This is life and death. Start learning it. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. Verse 17, you shall not pervert justice to a stranger or the fatherless, nor take a widow's garment as a pledge. Ger, they have stranger. It's ger. It's the ger. Here's an odd one. But thou, it doesn't say shall, but, and remember, it says, and remember that thou were a slave, an aved. Talking to men, they were the aved, there are no lady aved, in Egypt. And Yahovah thy Elohim redeemed thee from there. Therefore I command thee to do this thing. Okay, what is the thing that he commands us to do? In this case, it's not to pervert justice, do a ger, the fatherless, or the widows. You know, I'm gratified that it doesn't say the Levite. Because they keep putting Levites in our gates, don't they? When thou reap thy harvest in thy field, and forget a sheaf in the field, thou shalt not go back to get it. It shall be for the stranger, the ger, the fatherless, and the widow, that Yahovah thy Elohim may bless thee in all the work of thy hands. Forgot a sheaf? Leave the sheaf for the poor. When thou, that's our field. Now he's going to talk about our trees and our vineyards. When thou beat thy olive trees, thou shalt not go over the boughs again. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. When thou gather the grapes of thy vineyard, thou shalt not glean it afterwards. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. And thou shalt remember that thou were they said a slave. Thou were a servant. Here it is again. And the vet, the servants. Thou wert a servant in the land of Egypt. Therefore I command thee to do this thing. You know, this thing. Is it everything that he's telling us that we're supposed to do? These things? Going to be things? What does it say? I bet it doesn't even say thing. Let's see what it says. Sometimes it's just implied. To do this thing. These words. To do this. These words. Words. Debar. Debar, debar. This word, by implication, matter as spoken of, thing. I think it could be these things just as easily as thing. Okay, let's go to the next chapter. I'm prepared to go through 2 chapters today if we can do it, or 3 chapters today if we can do it, but we may not get there. Here we're talking about a dispute between men. Clearly, Enoshim is men. A dispute between men. And they come to court that they put the judges may judge them and justify the righteous, ha-zadik, and condemn ha-rasha, the wicked, the wicked. We have 2 sides, righteous and wicked. They can't coexist. You're going to be one or you're going to be the other. We want to stay on the righteous side. That's our goal. And it shall be, if the wicked, it doesn't say man, it just says if the wicked, but again, we're talking, it's inferred because we're talking about a dispute between Enoshim, men. This is not ladies. Do ladies go to court? We've seen a number of times where it's men who are going to court. Yet we see and hear the story about Solomon, who had the 2 mothers, this is my child, coming together. Seems odd. Where's the fathers? Then it shall be, if the wicked deserves to be beaten, that the judge will cause him to lie down and be beaten in his presence according to his guilt, with a certain number of blows. 40 blows he may give him, and no more, lest he should exceed this and beat him with many blows above these, and thy brother be humiliated in thy sight. We're still trying to keep the man. You know, these beatings are not to humiliate people. These beatings are the result of wicked behavior. Beatings, you know, we don't even comprehend things like this. We have jails. Would you rather take a beating or would you rather go to jail? Is the beating going to keep you from doing the thing that you did to be put in jail? Our ways are not his ways, are they? He doesn't want our brother to be humiliated in our sights, thy sights. Thy brother to be humiliated in thy sights. Pretty interesting. There's no jails. 4 says, thou shalt not muzzle the ox while it treads out the grain. What's he saying? I think this is what he's saying right here. You shall not muzzle the ox while he treads out the grain. In other words, help the animal perform the work that only he can do. He's treading out the grain for us. Feed him so that he can do it. If brothers dwell together. Oh, this is so amazing. This is about the Levirate marriage. If brothers dwell together, brothers dwell together. Are we talking about brothers in the same house? Are we talking about brothers within the gates? Brothers dwell together, and Ephraim dwells together with Ephraim. Benjamin dwells together with Benjamin. Naphtali dwells together with Naphtali. What are we talking about, brothers? Are these immediate family brothers? Maybe they are. Maybe it can go deeper than we might expect. I'm going to talk about Ruth and Boaz. What was going on in that situation? Here's two brothers dwell together, and one of them dies and has no son. And the widow of the dead man shall not be married to an outsider. Here it is. Shall not come to a man outside. Azor. Oh, that's so much. Look, they put stranger. Married to a stranger. Again, you got to look it up. Don't assume that's a ger. It says, shall not be married to a man outside. Azor. A foreign man. To an ish outside. It says her yambam. Her yambam. This is the word that we're talking about. Yambam. Her brother-in-law shall go to her and take lakak, her to himself for a woman, and perform the duty of the husband's brother for her. Here's exactly, and yambam her is all it says. They put, and perform the duty of the brother to her. All this is in this one word, and yambam her. We're just talking about her yambam, her brothers yambam, her yambam. This is the noun, this is the verb, and yambam her. And it shall be, does this say the married brother or the unmarried brother? Her husband's brother. It doesn't say her husband's unmarried brother, does it? It says her husband's brother. Okay, this is important stuff. And yambam her. And it shall be that the firstborn son, the Bekor, ha-Bekor, the firstborn son, which she bears will succeed to the name of the dead brother, that his name may not be blotted out of Israel. Okay, that is verse 5 through 6. But what if the brother already has a woman? Is he off the hook? Or is he required to take another woman? See, we don't get it. Carissa and I yesterday saw a movie called Loving Leah. Pretty interesting movie, a nice movie. It's a Hallmark movie. I like most Hallmark movies. It's a bit of a chick flick, but I think it's a nice movie. But there are perversions in it. They have a theology. In fact, that's one reason I never talk about the 613 commandments, because the Jews always talk about 613 commandments. I've seen a list of the 613 commandments more than once. In the last list that I saw, the very first commandment said a man shall only take one woman as a wife. Is that Torah? But see, they rewrite this doctrine so that it's a brother who's unmarried. Does it say unmarried? A brother who's unmarried. Her husband's unmarried brother shall go and take her? No, it just says her husband's brother. Why is this? Why? Here. What if the brother already has a woman? This man in the movie, he was engaged. Well, maybe he wasn't engaged. They were talking about getting engaged, I guess is what they were talking about. But she became history. He took this woman because he loved his brother so much, and they learned to love one another. It's really a beautiful story. But this is what happened to Tamar. Remember Tamar? Then Judah took a woman for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, remember, he's the firstborn, he's the one that's going to get the double portion, was wicked in the sight of Yehovah. And Yehovah killed him. And Judah said to Onan, go to thy brother's woman and yambam her. They use yambam. Isn't that interesting? And yambam her and raise up an heir for thy brother. But Onan knew that the heir would not be his. And it came to pass when he went to his brother's woman that he emitted on the ground lest he should give an heir to his brother. Why did he not want to give the heir to his brother? Because he's in line for the double portion if his brother's not there. But Yehovah wants to raise up an heir for his brother, so that person is going to get the double portion. Now, that's going to become significant later on as we talk about the rules for yambaming a woman. Let's continue. I want to go to, we read 6. What if a man's brother is already married? We talked about that. The firstborn son from the woman gets the inheritance that his dead brother would have received from his father. Yes, that's why he doesn't want to do it. Would the next son that comes from the woman be considered the dead brother's? Would the next son that comes from the woman be considered the dead man's brother's firstborn son? Okay, so here's the question. The firstborn son is going to be the brother's son. What about the nextborn son? Would that one be the firstborn son for this new brother, for this brother? Would that be his firstborn son? Time will tell. I would think it would be. If the first one's going to be for his brother, it seems like the next one would be for him. In verse 5, it says, brothers dwell together. Must these men be related? How closely do they need to be related? Is the next question. And Onan were literal brothers, sons of Judah. I said, must these men be related? What about the Ger who dwells with you, thou, who later becomes an Ezra? Same generation. Ezras are always called brothers. Is this spiritually born men? How close does this link have to be? Let's talk about Naomi and Ruth and Boaz. What was going on there? He says, but if a man does not want to take his brother's woman, then let his brother's woman go to the gate to the elders and say to the husband's brother, and say, my husband's brother refuses. Let's see what that word is. Husband's brother. It can't be husband's. My man's brother? And if, is this the right verse? And if a man like not to take, and if the man like not to take them, the wife of take his sister-in-law. They're using the word sister-in-law. To take his sister-in-law. That would close in the framework, wouldn't it? His sister-in-law. To it actually being actual brothers. She's going to go up to the gate and his sister-in-law, they say brother's wife, sister-in-law, let his sister-in-law go to the gates of the city and say, my Yambam. It's Yambam. Isn't that interesting? It's not my brother-in-law, or not my husband's brother. It says my Yambam. My Yambam. My Yambam. Will not raise up. All right, let's go back. And it shall be that the first, no. But if a man does not take his sister-in-law, let his sister-in-law go up to the gate to the elders and say, my Yambam refuses to raise up a name to his brother in Israel. He says he will not consent to Yambam. He will not consent. And he will not perform the duty of the husband's brother. He will not consent to Yambam. Remember the B, we have Yambam, but it's Yambam. The B is soft. He will not consent to Yambam. Why would the man not do it? Well, here's a few possibilities. I put because his current wife is defiling him from doing what is right. In a sense, this is what the lady, his girlfriend in the film did, was, you can't keep me and take her. You got to decide which one you're going to have. See, we lose the concept of having two women in our life. That's not even a possibility in this day and age. We have totally forsaken what Jehovah says, and we've gone away that it says one man and one woman. Is that what Jehovah says? No. Okay, so perhaps his current woman is defiling him. Maybe he is married, and his woman says, no, I don't want another woman. Perhaps his brother was to had Ezra on the gates, and he's the successor. He wants to be the successor. He doesn't want to raise up a child who's going to be a successor over him. Okay, there's another motive for not taking her. But how did he get to be the new head? Well, maybe this is where we're talking about. Look at this. By refusing to provide a new heir and leader of the gate, now his gate is the house of him who has his sandal removed. He's the head of the gates, but he's the house of him who had a sandal removed. In other words, he's the one who refused to raise up the rightful heir to the gates. But it's his gate still, isn't it? Then the elders of the city shall call him and speak to him. But if he stands firm and says, I do not want to take her, then his sister-in-law shall come to him in the presence of the elders, remove his sandal. Okay, here's the sister-in-law, comes to him in the presence of the elders, removes his sandal from his foot, spits in his face, and says, now in the movie, they didn't have him spit in her face, or she didn't spit in his face. She sat on the floor. So it shall be done. Here's what she's going to say. Spit in his face and say, so it shall be done to the man who refuses to build up his brother's house. Probably Yambam. Who refuses to Yambam. Let's find out. Again, I'm just I'm just curious about these kinds of things. No, he refuses to build up house of his brother, house of his house of his brother, build up a house of his brother. That's what it's about. We're building up the house of his brother. That's what the Yambam does. But what happens to the woman? Is there a woman who would not want to be taken by her brother-in-law? Does she have a choice in the matter? But this is maybe what's going on with Ruth and Naomi. Remember, Ruth's husband died. They had 2 sons. The 2 sons took 2 Moabite women. Ruth was one of them. But he had property in Israel that he had sold when he left because of the famine. It's still his property. And in the year of Jubilee, it would have come back to him. But he's dead. Now his sons are both dead as well, and there is no one to take the land. Yet, we have a couple issues going on here. We have a near of kin, Boaz, apparently a brother, perhaps, of, I think his name was Elimelech, I think. But there was another brother who didn't want to do the Yambam for Ruth. She took off her shoe, took off his shoe, and threw it across, spit in his face. Boaz then had the ability to take her. But Boaz was doing 2 things, I think. He was taking this woman who was going to be the heir, but he was also redeeming the property so that Naomi could come back to that property and have a place to live. So I think there's 2 things going on here. The firstborn son that Ruth is going to raise is going to be the Elimelech heir to that particular piece of property. So who's the second-born son that Naomi has? Does Boaz have another wife already? We never even heard of whether he had a wife already. We just assume he didn't. Well, more things to be discovered, I'm sure. Refuses to build up his brother's house. And look what it says. And his name shall be called in Israel, the house of him who had his sandal removed. So remember, we were talking about the man who was in his gates. The gates literally should be the heir's gates, but he's claiming them for himself because he refused to raise up an heir. I think this is exactly what was happening with Onan. When Onan put a seed on the ground, he was taking Tamar to raise up a seed for Remember? He was the Yambam. But he let the seed go out on the ground. Yahovah didn't think that was funny. He expected him to raise up a seed, the Yambam, to raise up a seed for And he refused. He was killed also. Judah was supposed to give Shelah to him, his next son. But he was so troubled by what had happened to his 2 sons in regard to this woman that he refused to give her Shelah. Well, she was owed seed, and she got Judah's seed from Judah himself instead. Well, interesting story. Another thought. Verse 11. If 2 men fight together, and the woman of one draws near to rescue her man, not her husband, her man, Two men fight together. A woman draws near to rescue her man from the hand of the one attacking him, and puts her hand and seizes him by the genitals. By the genitals, what are the word they're using here? The mubash, mubush, mabush, mabush. Secret parts. Pudenda. Interesting. Don't know what a pudenda is. Thou shalt cut off her hand. Thy eye shall not pity her. Inappropriate way to help your man, apparently. Thou shalt not have, in a new thought completely, thou shalt not have in thy bag differing weights, heavy and light. If you're going to have a weight that's going to represent a shekel, it better represent a shekel, not a less than a shekel. Equal weights and equal measures. This is weights. The next one talks about measures. Thou shalt not have in thy house differing measures, a large and a small. So we want to have equal weights and equal measures. Here it is. Thou shalt have a perfect and just weight, a perfect and just measure, that thy days may be lengthened in the land which Jehovah thy Elohim is giving thee. We're not going to cheat our brothers by trickery. For all who do such things, all who behave unrighteously are an abomination, at tu'avah. An abomination, here it is, tu'abah, an abomination to Yehovah thy Elohim. Well, we talked about Amalek today. Here he is right here. Remember what Amalek did to thee, a new thought, to thee on the way as thou, Ya'al, came out of Egypt. How he met thee on the way and attacked thy rear ranks, all the stragglers at thy rear, when thou wert tired and weary, and he did not fear Elohim. See, this is Amalek. Eliphaz is his father, and the father of Eliphaz is Esau. Edom. These are the Edomites. Therefore it shall be, when Yehovah thy Elohim has given thee rest from thy enemies all around, and in the land which Yehovah thy Elohim is giving thee to possess as an inheritance, that you will blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under the heavens. Thou shalt not forget. Well, we did forget. And it was not until Saul was king that Samuel reminded him to do it. And he told Samuel to go out and wipe out the Amalekites, kill every living thing. Well, he didn't. He brought the king back. I think he brought the queen back. And Samuel had to kill them both. And there were sheep and goats, probably cattle with him as well, that had to be killed. All right. Well, that's the end of today's lesson. Next week, we're going to do 26. Third year tithe. We're going to talk about this third year tithe. Some other things we'll be talking about. Hey, thanks for joining me today. Remember, if you will, sign up for the YouTube channel, and you can get a copy of this teaching every day. Thanks for listening. I guess we'll see you again next week. Bye now.